on this planet think you have it all figured out, and you don't. Not for this energy that's coming, you don't. And that's what we want to address. There is something coming where you will be able to manifest things only dreamed of, but it's going to take belief, realignment, understanding that dimensionally you are more powerful. Dimensions you cannot see than the ones you can't see. And you weren't taught that in school. Training, practice, intent, design. It had to work. If you do not actively attempt to change, you will always be floating on the surface like the old. We use that example because you have an idea of where dark and light goes on the planet. So let's bring this up in a way that you'll understand. Let's talk about that dark and light thing. Yet again, we have given you the information over and over that darkness defined as the absence of light. And yet, what do you do with this? You, in your mythology, have decided it must be intelligent. There has to be a consciousness behind darkness. And because you've decided there is, therefore, never understand it. Still don't. It becomes human evil design. Now, it has consciousness because a human put it there. But alone, there is no entity out to capture your soul. Period. There is only the balance of dark and light. What humans do with it gives it, therefore, its manifestation. And you're used to a certain balance on the earth. Cases are your parents looking back at you, you're pleasing them. By the fight that you have put here, by the light that you carry, all is well. You feel that? Or are you looking around for some other approval somewhere? I get that. It's time for you to recalibrate that. There are things you should know about the way you think now and what is going on. It's going to change. Right? You mean there's not going to be a struggle? Well, guess there will be. This struggle between dark and light will be classic. You're going to watch it like a game. Perhaps even on your own ball fields where it goes back and forth. It doesn't seem to be one team winning, and it simply goes back and forth. What will you think about that when that takes place? In your heart of hearts, what are you going to say? Well, we failed. Nothing has happened. That's because there was all you are willing to look at is the three-dimensional game field.
High pressure will follow again on Saturday.
You're not looking at anything else.
Light winds are expected throughout the forecast period.
Maybe it's simply a push-pull
Light to moderate winds
something
accompany
else
the
is
cold front
happening.
Monday night and Friday.
What if you're a piece of the puzzle working it for something else to happen?
Light.
What if you're a placeholder
0
on this
knots
plan?
moderate.
Hard to describe.
4
This
to 33
is the battle between the pride of darkness has no intelligence. How does it battle us? Here are some attributes of the darkness I wish to share. Number 1, it's dark. Number 2, because it's dark, it cannot see what you're doing.
Colloidal substances bubbling around. See, both that story and the other story can be made to seem equally fanciful. But the question is this: if I say about the gong, look, my friend, I respect you because you are a little bit conscious. See? You relate to me. You're kind of a younger brother, and you know. Then there's something endearing and warm about this attitude to things. Whereas if I say, you're just a piece of metal, and as a matter of fact, I'm just a piece of metal too. That's a kind of insult. Now, the people who believe that are really suicidal maniacs. They want to put themselves down. They are against their own life. And they take a great pride in being that way, and they call it being realistic. And I'm only saying it's a better gamble to take it the other way and say the best thing you can say about it, that this is a living being, but not so much of a living being as a snail or something that actually wanders along and wiggles. So you see, the pressure upon us of the whole mythology of the 19th century, the whole attitude of putting down the universe because the previous myth had been too uncomfortably alive, is simply a way of looking at things. Let me give another illustration of the same thing. If you study the various forms of life from the standpoint of natural selection, you may come up with a rationalization for everything. Somebody wants to know, why do butterflies have eyes on their wings? Some butterflies. Well, somebody scratches his head and says, oh, well, there must be an explanation for that. There's an explanation for everything. Why is there an explanation for everything? Because the universe is really a type engineering job. So, why do some butterflies have eyes? Well, it so happened that some fluke of a butterfly once got an eye on its wing. And birds would avoid it because that eye looked at them and it was just too much. So those butterflies that had eyes on their wings bred, whereas the butterflies that didn't have eyes got eaten up more easily. Although some of them had other alternatives, because of not having eyes, they were invisible and the birds couldn't see them. And so more of that kind survived, although those with the terrifying eyes survived, and so they didn't get eaten up either. So those, it tended to multiply. So this is a perfectly easy, simple explanation of why butterflies have eyes on their wings. course, other things, some birds with extraordinary plumages, which look so obvious that anybody could catch them, any cat, any hunter. No, they survived because they were so attractive to their females. And so they bred very well. As a matter of fact, this isn't true, they didn't. And, you know, but any explanation will do, provided it seems to explain. Now, that is one way of looking at things. You can make an extremely consistent colloidal substances bubbling around. See, both that theory for the different kind of species of flowers and birds and insects and all their markings and so on, just why they have them, story can be made to seem equally fanciful. But the question is this: if I say about the gong, but on the other hand, you can equally well explain it in a completely different way. You can say, look, my friend, I respect you because you are a little bit conscious. See? You relate to me, you're kind of a younger brother. And it would be exceedingly dreary if there were nothing but one uniform type of life. Supposing there had never been anything but amoebas, you know, then there's something endearing and warm about this attitude to things. Whereas and there were just globules, and they divided, and then they divided again, and then they divided again. You know, that could have gone on and been terribly efficient. If I say, you're just a piece of metal, and as a matter of fact, I'm just a piece of metal too. Because the minute you went to hit an amoeba, you would strike it, but suddenly find you'd killed only one of them because it split just before you hit. That's a kind of insult. Now, the people who believe that are really suicidal maniacs. They want to put themselves in marvelous arrangements. And you know, they could split very fast. You could suddenly go at another with two hammers, hoping to catch both amoeba down. They are against their own life, and they take a great pride in being that way. But suddenly, they split, and there were 8 of them before you knew where you were. That would be fine. But they call it being realistic. I'm only saying it's a better gamble. Actually, or the reason why there is all this colossal variety and all these patterns on butterflies' wings is that nature is a poet. Take it the other way and say the best thing you can say about it, that this is a living and is simply having a wonderful time making all this variety, doing all these various things, being, but not so much of a living being as a snail or something that actually wanders along and wiggles. And that explanation is just as plausible as the efficient explanation. It's you see, the philosophy is to a large extent. So you see, the a matter of taste. What sort of explanations suit your personality? If you're an anal retentive type and rather tight, pressure upon us of the whole mythology of the 19th century, the whole attitude, then you like the efficient explanation. On the other hand, if you're an effusive type, you like the poetic explanation. But there are, though, beyond that, certain considerations of which of these explanations affords better games. And the economic anal retentive explanation can give good games up to a point, because there's all the thrill of working out the chains of interconnection, all the reasoning, whereby finally you go through all sorts of rational conniptions and explain why the butterfly has a big eye on its wing. Fine. But where do you end up? You end up in a mechanical straitjacket. You've got to be careful along the other line of approach that you just don't end up in a morass. you could do that.
The first one. Now the second one
Of putting down the universe because the previous myth had been too uncomfortably alive is simply a way of looking at things. Let me give another illustration of the same thing. If you study the various forms of life from the standpoint of natural selection, you may come up with a rationalization for everything. Somebody wants to know, why do butterflies have eyes on their wings? Some butterflies. Well, somebody scratches his head and says, oh, well, there must be an explanation for that. There's an explanation for everything. Why is there an explanation for everything? Because the universe is really a type engineering job. So, why do some butterflies have eyes? Well, it so happened that some fluke of a butterfly once got an eye on it. And birds would avoid it because that eye looked at them and it was just too...
It's always important. Do we go through the origin or not?
So those butterflies that had eyes on their wings bred, whereas the butterflies that didn't have eyes got eaten up more easily. Although some of them had other alternatives, they got them not. They were invisible and the birds couldn't see them. And so more of that kind survived, although those with the terrifying eyes survived, and so they didn't get eaten up either. So those, it tended to multiply. So this is a perfectly easy, simple explanation of why butterflies have eyes on their wings. Other things, some birds with extraordinary plumages, which look so obvious that anybody could catch them.
Now let me say, well, suppose X is -1.
Any cat, any hunter. No, they survived because they were so attractive to their females. And so they bred very well. As a matter of fact, this isn't true. Didn't. And, you know, but any explanation will do, provided it seems to explain. Now that is one way of looking at things. You can make an extremely consistent theory for the different kind of species of flowers and birds and insects. All their markings and so on, just why they have them. But on the other hand, you can equally well explain it in a completely different way. You can say, it would be exceedingly dreary if there were nothing but one uniform type of life. Supposing there had never been anything but amoebas, and there were just globules, and they divided, and then they divided again, and then they divided again. You know, that could have gone on, and it could have been terribly efficient, because the minute you went to hit an amoeba, you would strike it, but suddenly find you'd killed only one of them because it split just before you hit. It's a marvelous arrangement. And you know, they could... Split very fast. You could suddenly go at another with two hammers, hoping to catch both amoebas, but suddenly they split, and there were 8 of them before you knew... where you were. that would be fine. But actually, the reason why there is all this colossal variety,
Let's respect this. If x is 1, I have a minus 1,
and all these patterns on butterflies' wings, is that nature is a poet. And is simply having a one wonderful time making all this variety, doing all these various things. And that explanation is just as plausible as the efficient explanation. You see, the philosophy is to a large extent a matter of taste. What sort of explanations suit your person?
this one in the right amount to get that one. It's asking us to find the right linear combination. This is called a linear combination.
If you're an anal retentive type and rather tight, then you like the efficient explanation. On the other hand, if you're an effusive type, you like the poetic explanation. But there are, though, beyond that, certain considerations of which of these explanations affords better games. And the economic anal retentive explanation can give good games up to a point, because there's all the thrill of working out the chains of interconnection, all the reasoning, whereby finally you go through all sorts of rational conniptions and explain why the butterfly has a big eye on its wing. Fine. But where do you end up? You end up in a mechanical straitjacket. You've got to be careful along the other line of approach that you just don't end up in a morass. You could do that.
The first one. Now the second one is not going to go through the origin. It's always important. Do we go through the origin or not? In this case, yes, because there's a zero over there. In this case, we don't go through the origin because if x and y are zero, we don't go through. So, again, say, suppose y is zero. What x do we actually get? If y is zero, then I get y is 0, I go along minus I believe, solves both equations. Let's just check this. If x is 1, I have a minus 1.
Like it vague.
And when you